All right, now we're dealing with a bunch of entities, a little bit pumping the brakes on specific taxes and numbers and all that mind-numbing stuff. We've got these different entities, and we want to understand the responsibilities of each, the authority of each, what they can all do, what's your relationship as a CPA with all of these organizations. Well, first off, let's talk about the state boards of accountancies versus the AICPA versus state CPA societies. Now, state societies such as the California State of CPAs, the Oklahoma State Board of CPAs, or the South Dakota State, there's 50 of them, right? I believe there's also for Puerto Rico and Guam and all the other U.S. Territories. So state societies and the AICPA, these are professional organizations that the CPAs may join. So you can join these. You're not forced to join them. You can pay an annual fee or something. I think it's every 3 years. Not too important for us here, though. The state boards of accountancy are regulatory agencies, so they make the rules. The organizations are independent, with each having a different function. It's going to be important for you as we go through the exam and we go through these next few slides to understand, and we'll have memorization guides, but also I want you to yourself take notes on what each of these organizations are responsible for and what's your relationship. What can they do? Can these organizations punish you? Can they fine you? Some can, some cannot. We'll talk about those and see the differences. All right. First off, talking about the organizational authority and discipline, we've got the AICPA and state CPA societies. So the AICPA, despite the fact that they're the ones who run this entire exam, and they're the ones who you are probably referencing a lot when you're going through this whole process, they play an important role, but they're not going to be the end-all be-all. So they play an important role in self-regulation and upholding the professional standards. However, their authority and disciplinary powers differ from the state boards of accountancy. Now, important to see here is that state CPA societies, that's different than the state board of accountancy. So I am licensed through the New York. Hopefully I'm still licensed. I don't know. Maybe I didn't pay my fines. No, I'm a good CPA. I pay all my fees and everything. So that's different. The state CPA society, you could say, oh, this is the Nick Palzolo New York State CPA Society. We just do our own thing. It's kind of like a club, right? But the state board of accountancy, that's the official New York State. We are licensing you in the state of New York. Now, it's not like the bar. I mean, I can still practice CPA work in any of the 50 states, but this is going to be the official state board. They do all their stuff. So, but right now we're talking about the AICPA and the state CPA societies, which kind of think of them like clubs. Think about joining the AICPA and state CPA societies like clubs. Now, these individuals or these groups cannot suspend or revoke your license. That is reserved for the state board, the official Florida State Board, the official Georgia State Board of CPAs. That is what they can do. So these AICPA and CPA societies do not have the authority to suspend or revoke the license. Now, what they can do, they can suspend or terminate membership without a hearing, because what did I say? They're like clubs. Think of them like clubs. And just like if you join any club, they can just say, bye, goodbye, you're out of our club. And is that the end of the world? Probably not. What would be the end of the world, I think, in my mind, is getting your license revoked from the state board. So you can get kicked out of the AICPA and these state CPA societies. Yeah, you're going to bruise your ego maybe a little bit, but also just don't do anything that would get you kicked out. I don't know. Is that too hard? Just making jokes here. They can suspend or terminate an individual's membership without holding a formal hearing. This can happen if a member violates the rules, bylaws, or professional standards. Makes sense. You can generally kick anyone out of a club if they break your rules. And they cannot issue fines. So the AICPA and the state CPA societies, they do not have the authority to impose monetary fines on members as a part of disciplinary actions. Again, that is reserved for the state boards of accountancy. So all of you thought that just because you're taking this exam through NASBA, AICPA, you thought, oh, they were the end all be all. Nope, it's actually the state boards of accountancy that hold all the cards. Well, they each have their own role to play. Now, sanctions from the AICPA or state societies could include, you could be expelled from those, which we kind of talked about. You've conducted misconduct or violated standards. Yeah, they can kick you out. These are, you want to understand what they can actually do. So overall, yeah, can they suspend your membership? They totally can. Now, although they do not have the authority to directly regulate CPE courses, and if you're not familiar with these are something that you'll have to take once you actually do earn your license, which you will do because you're awesome and you're doing great studying. Just like you needed 150 credits to sit for the exam, you need a certain amount of CPEs, continuing professional education courses. So let's say I sit for an hour listening to an online course that is registered with the AICPA for tax preparation. That might give me 1 credit. And I need a certain amount of credits per year to maintain my license. So you thought, oh, it's all over. Once I pass the exams and get all of my educational and experience in order, then I can be a CPA. Well, yeah, you can, but you still have a lot of work to do after that. Well, I personally hate maintenance. I'm not a fan of it, but you can understand the importance of wanting to make sure that anyone who is a CPA is continuing to learn more and stay sharp in their field. They play a significant role in developing and promoting professional education opportunities for their members. So yeah, if you join the AICPA or these state societies, does it make it easier to maintain your license? Yeah, quite likely. It makes sense. This can include recommending or endorsing specific courses, sponsoring educational events, or offering their own CPE programs. I myself, I gave courses online. Specifically, I'll remember it was about the accounting for cryptocurrency, and people earn CPE credits by attending mine. Was that through the AICPA or a state CPA society? No, but there's a whole process to make sure that the courses that you're giving are approved and all. Seeing our state boards of accountancy now, as we kind of alluded to, they're the big head honchos. They play a critical role in regulating the accounting profession within their respective jurisdictions. So again, they have to stay within their borders. The Ohio State Board of Accountancy can't cross over to the Illinois one and penalize someone there. They have the sole authority to license and revoke your license. So that's your big, that's what you're going for, right? Throughout this exam. So don't get that revoked. Ensuring that only qualified professionals are allowed to practice. Now, I'm sure you're a qualified professional, and props to you. CPAs must pay license fees to their state boards to maintain their licenses, demonstrating their commitment to uphold professional standards and to pay money. They love your money, and comply with relevant laws and regulations. Categories of misconduct that can lead to disciplinary actions by state boards of accountancy can include, so these are important while you're performing accounting services. If you have any negligence, fraud, incompetence, or violations of professional standards, yeah, they can totally revoke your license. Now, same with the AICPA or those what I call clubs, is in their bylaws is they say, hey, you're not going to be performing misconduct. You're not going to have any negligence or fraud or anything. So yeah, they could kick you out as well. But the thing is, this is the big, I think in my mind, the bigger one, because you don't want to lose your actual license. Outside the scope of accounting services, this is going to refer to unprofessional conduct or unethical behavior. So even if you, let's say, unfortunately, you get a DUI or you crash your car, or harm someone, or let's say you commit fraud outside of the accounting world, you do something bad in the world, even though that's not related to accounting, they can still suspend your license if it does something contrary to the CPA bylaws. It can still affect the public's trust in the profession. So that's a big gray area. I'm not, it's not our job to understand what would actually get you kicked out. But yeah, don't do anything bad out there. Criminal conviction of a crime, especially one involving dishonesty, can lead to disciplinary actions as it reflects poorly on the profession and can undermine public trust. As a reminder, this is something big I go through an audit, but what is the whole business model of the CPA license, of being a CPA? It's trust. That's what comes with it. Why would someone hire a CPA over just another person? Well, there comes a lot of trust within having a license. And with that, the AICPA, the state boards of accountancy, they need to do everything in their power to make sure that trust maintains, because without trust, no one's going to hire a CPA, no one's going to really care anymore. And then they're out of a job. So that's what's important to know here. Diving more into these state boards of accountancy, well, these state boards of accountancy typically conduct investigations when allegations of misconduct arise. They are going in, enforcing, and doing their own sort of thing, making sure that everyone is following the rules, that no one is taking their CPA license and doing anything bad with it. If warranted, a formal hearing may be held. The standard of proof, now this is something we'll see in business law, we'll see this throughout the course, whenever we're dealing with lawsuits and whenever we're dealing with litigation and someone fighting off someone else, whether it's the IRS trying to impose certain taxes, or if it's you dealing with an agent or principal or agent, the standard of proof. Now, for criminal cases, generally this is going to be beyond a reasonable doubt because, well, that's pretty significant, right? You want to make sure that you definitely know that this person committed a criminal act so that, if they get locked up. Whereas if you've got a normal civil sort of case, which this is kind of what this is, right? Dealing with civil, usually not criminal sort of situation, it's going to not be beyond a reasonable doubt, meaning the bar to convict someone is going to be a little bit lower. So this is the standard used in criminal cases, is beyond a reasonable doubt. As mentioned, however, the accountant under investigation is entitled to the due process of law. No kangaroo courts here. We are going to do the normal procedure of the courts, ensuring their rights are protected throughout the process. Now, if this person is guilty of misconduct, and I better not ever hear this coming from any of you, it's going to be those people in the other review courses that are guilty of misconduct, right? No one taking this course. State boards of accountancy can impose various penalties, and these are going to include suspension or revocation of license, which totally makes sense. It's kind of what we talked about. This is the most severe penalty they can do, either temporarily or permanently revoking, suspending, taking away that license, preventing them from practicing. We've also got monetary fines, financial penalties imposed on the CPA that reflect the severity of the misconduct. A reprimand or censure. This is a formal public statement expressing disapproval of the CPA's actions, which may negatively impact their professional reputation. That's definitely a great way to, harm someone is let it be known that they have done something wrong, and to the general public. We've got probation. This is a period of supervision during which the CPA must comply with specific conditions and demonstrate their commitment to improving their professional conduct. And lastly, we've got requirement for CPE courses. This is pretty light compared to these other ones. So a CPA may be required to complete additional educational courses in order to address knowledge gaps or reinforce ethical standards. I would take sitting through a few courses over getting my license revoked or a monetary fine, but that's just me. Maybe you're totally okay with paying fines and you don't want to sit through courses. State boards of accountancy play an essential role in maintaining the integrity of the whole profession and protecting the public interest, because that's what we're here for. I mean, hopefully, as accountants, we're here for the public interest. By enforcing professional standards and addressing instances of misconduct, they help ensure the CPAs maintain the highest level of competence and ethical behavior. A lot of overlap with the audit exam as well. I mean, makes sense. A lot of ethics and how you should behave as an accountant will be on most of the exams. Next up, the SEC. Oh, the big bad SEC. We're just going to talk about a few different organizations and what their responsibilities are, what their roles are, how do they fit into the big picture, and what can they do. Well, the Securities and Exchange Commission, this is going to be a U.S. federal regulatory agency. You may or may not be familiar with the SEC. They deal mostly with securities law to protect investors, maintain fair and efficient markets, and to facilitate capital formation. It's important to note that the SEC does not deal with tax law enforcement. That is going to fall under the IRS. However, the SEC can impose civil penalties for violations of securities laws that may have tax implications. Why are we talking about the SEC? Well, on the exam, the Securities and Exchange Acts of 1933 and 34 used to be tested. They're not really tested anymore at all. And obviously within that, we have the SEC. So that's why we talk about the SEC. Also, SEC deals with public companies. So that's just another reason. I mean, if the extent to what you need to know is on this slide, that's not too much, right? What can the SEC do? They can revoke the right to practice in front of the SEC, fines of no more than $100,000 or $500,000 for a firm or company, and they can issue cease and desist orders, making you stop what you're doing. Next up, the IRS. Much more of a relevant organization for what we're going to see here on the exam. Well, the IRS is going to have the authority to enforce penalties and disciplinary actions against taxpayers and tax professionals, which include both criminal and civil penalties. The following points are going to talk about what the IRS is going to be capable of doing and what they may do. First, we've got criminal penalties. The IRS can impose criminal penalties on taxpayers and preparers who intentionally engage in fraudulent activities. That makes sense. Fraud is the highest level of harm you can cause. So yeah, fraud is going to be met with criminal penalties. This may be tax evasion, filing false returns, or willful failure to file. If you choose not to file, oh yeah, you got to prove, oh, I forgot. Then that wouldn't be as serious as them proving that, yeah, you knew you needed to file a return and you didn't. In criminal cases, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt, as we saw before. This is a higher standard of evidence than in civil cases. I guess a lot more important to make sure that someone who has committed some serious wrongdoing in a criminal court is proven beyond a reasonable doubt that they did it, as compared to, oh, I just hit my neighbor's fence. That's not as serious as committing a serious criminal act. Civil penalties, the IRS is going to also impose civil penalties. This is obviously lesser than criminal penalties for non-compliance with tax laws, such as the underpayment of taxes, negligence, which negligence is a level below fraud. So fraud's most serious. We got negligence, or substantial understatement of tax liabilities. In civil cases, the burden of proof is a preponderance of the evidence, which means it is a more likely than not that the violation has occurred. Notice that this is not the same as beyond a reasonable doubt. Yeah, it's more likely than not that you committed the act, whereas this, you have to prove that they did it beyond a reasonable doubt. Next up, the IRS can impose fines on taxpayers and professionals for various violations, such as failure to file, failure to pay, failure to deposit taxes. We'll see these when we deal with throughout the course, throughout various lessons. When we deal with penalties, which you do need to memorize, you need to know how to be able to calculate what the penalty is, for how long you didn't file the tax return, how much interest you owe. That's something we'll talk about and make sure you know. The amount's going to depend on the nature and severity, and we will talk about that. Next, we've got the prohibition from practicing. The IRS can sanction tax professionals, such as enrolled agents, CPAs, or attorneys, for unethical or fraudulent conduct. This can include suspending or revoking their ability to practice for the IRS. You see that as a very much something that all these organizations can do. At the very least, an organization has the authority to prevent people from practicing before them or anything within their arm's length. That's something that any organization will be able to do. Lastly, we got fines for tax professionals. Well, tax professionals can be subject to fines for violations of the tax code or other regulations. For individuals, we see same as the SEC. We've got fines up to $100,000, while corporations can face fines of up to $500,000. The exact amount is going to just obviously depend on how serious the allegations and the offense are.
Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.Examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit CPA.Examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.